Readers,
reviewers,
countrymen,
lend us your ears.
And a huge thank you to all of our Patreons.
Thank you to the Pit Fighters, the First Swords, and all of the Bright Stars, Truth and Courage.
Hello and welcome today. We are the brothers Gwynne. I'm Will. This is my brother Ed. And today we're talking about what we read in the month of March. We're a quarter of the way through the year. We may have a video coming out talking about our favourite reads of 2025 so far, but not today. Today we're talking about what we read in the third month of 2025, which is called March.
March was an intense month. I did a lot of reading. I had a lot of extra time this month. I'm very happy.
This is why I feel like we're a good team. The month that I've kind of evaporated off the earth in senses of reading, as you'll find out.
It's getting warmer.
You've picked up. So overall, we kind of even out. Next month you might read a bit less and I'll read a bit more. So I've got 2 books to talk about. Actually, 2.5. You'll see what I mean by the third. And you've got 12. I think
I have like 12,
Put me to shame over here.
I've had to lock in for you.
So I think
carry us.
We can do like a mission, 30-second a book kind of thing. So I don't feel, too...
I know, obviously the channel's about you, so it'd be strange.
Of course,
for me to do, lots of talking.
It's a brotherly channel, Ed. It's brotherly channel.
It is true.
Let's get into what we actually read, and I suppose as I only have 2, you should probably start us off, Ed.
So the first read of the month for me was The Terror by Dan Simmons. This was the Discord read-along. We had quite the group of travellers reading this month, and it is a great book. I mean, this is the story of the Franklin expedition in 1845, set looking at the HMS Terror and Erebus, and these 2 ships got stuck in the ice up north.
It's not what you want, really.
And some spooky things start happening. It's a really intense book. It's a big old chunker. You've got quite the foray of characters that Dan Simmons really dives into. And
it creeps into your voice. Did you feel terror?
I did feel extreme amounts of terror. And I will never look at polar bears the same. But no, it's a great
Are you going
book.
to now watch the programme?
I have started the programme. I'm probably about halfway through, and it is good. It's just very bleak. It is very depressing. It is very just horrific, the things that happen, because it's not just... There are these kind of supernatural things that are going on, but you've also got the men who start to get each other's throats, quite literally. You've got all of the horrible diseases. You've got the animals as well. And you've got the weather, because it is so damn cold.
It's just not what terrible. You want when you're feeling that kind of spring vibe outside.
No,
I mean, we've got some sunlight. We're liking to go outside, and then you're reading about the deep cold.
It was chilly at the beginning of the month, so it was good timing. But yeah, I think everyone pretty much enjoyed this on the read along. So nice. I'm happy with it, and I definitely want to read some more Dan Simmons.
Very nice. And Ed, talk about your next.
The next one for me was Nevernight by Kristoff, and now, I'm a big Kristoff fan this year. I've read Empire of the Vampire, Empire of the Damned, and Ashley over at Life of a Silver Saint, great channel, great new channel. She's a big Kristoff stan, and she's inspired me to try and read all of his books this year.
And is she going to be happy with what you say about Nevernight now?
Of course, because this book is so good. I can't believe how much of an incredible writer Kristoff is. He's just that guy. I feel like he's got such a deep understanding of story beats and character connections and witty dialogue. And Nevernight has it all. Now, some people say it's YA because the protagonist is a 16-year-old girl. But if they have any sort of knowledge of just reading, it's not YA. It's so dark. It's very, very adult. I know that Kristoff's writing isn't for everyone. He's not really a writer who I would recommend for... everyone,
for the masses,
the wider populace to read. But I would say that if you like gritty fantasy, if you like fantasy that doesn't take itself too seriously, but has some real moments of gravitas and depth, has dialogue that no one else can get away with, it's clearly written by someone from Australia, then read Nevernight, because it is so good. I loved the character connections, their relationships. I thought the story was brilliant. It is the story of Mia, who is a 16-year-old girl. Her family have been slaughtered. Her father was labelled as a traitor rather than a patriot. And she then goes across the land to this church to train as a secret assassin. Now, all assassins have to be secret, really, don't they?
Of course, so, you don't have, like, an open assassin.
Maybe I shouldn't say, it's like saying pin number. when it means
personal identification number.
Thank you. So I really enjoyed it. I love that character going to a school setting, but it didn't feel bogged down by that. It didn't feel like, oh, we've been in this setting before. It just felt very much like a J. Kristoff book, which is incredibly unique, incredible action, great characters.
Tropes are there for a reason.
Absolutely.
To be done uniquely and subverted.
Absolutely, and J. Kristoff does that perfectly. So Nevernight is incredible, and I don't know how this year isn't going to end with Kristoff as my new favourite author.
Wow, that is bold words, Ed. We'll revisit this. And I'm not really sure I want you to talk about your next book, but let's just get it done with.
The Mad Ship was indeed mad, and it really...
And you've taken it from my shelf.
Well, I just thought I'd borrow yours. I didn't want to lug all of mine down the road to her, but...
Rubbing salt in the wound there, Ed.
Funny you should mention salt. Because this book is set in the high seas. The Mad Ship is book 2 of the Live Ship Traders trilogy, and I just don't know how Robin Hobb can write book 2s so damn well. Like, she is the best IMO at writing book 2s of a trilogy. I've only read 2
you
of
get with
those.
the Young Guns, Ed, IMO.
Yeah, cheers.
Wow.
Cheers. I've just been aura farming lately.
Oh dear. Pushing a question to you.
Yeah.
Just very quickly.
Yeah.
Royal Assassin.
No, Royal
or
Assassin. I don't think you can top Royal Assassin for a Robin Hobb book. So far, anyway, it is just incredible. But this book did have moments that had me in tears. There had moments where I was like so enthusiastic about what the characters were doing. Their relationships were really forming. We know that Robin Hobb is the best. She's the GOAT at writing relationships. I think she merges relationships and plot here perfectly.
Okay.
I think this is far superior to the first
You're
trilogy.
agreeing with
What's
Maddie.
the first trilogy called again? The Farseer. But I really do think that Will wouldn't really connect to these on a personal level.
Oh man, he got me so good.
Well, I think
Get out.
because you don't really like boats.
You
that
know what?
much,
We were being civil, okay? We were being
We're now
civil.
gonna
So you
have
do
a
agree with
civil
Maddie
dispute.
that Live Ships is better than Farseer?
Absolutely, I would definitely agree with Maddie from Chris and Mads. Live Ships is better than Farseer. But Royal Assassin is my favourite book written by Hobb so far.
But as a trilogy. And are you reading book 3 in April?
Hell yeah.
You nice,
Hell
Ed.
yeah. I mean, it's anchored me in.
Oh, wait until Ed's short review of Ship of Magic comes out.
Yeah.
He loves his puns and he shows it there. And also, talking about Chris and Maz, we have a very exciting video coming up. And I think it'll be the week this video goes out.
Cool.
Yes, it would have been just before. So the video before this that came out on the channel will be our chat with Chris and Maz, where we talked about reading, inspiration,
Toes.
making content, selling toe hair, the whole lot. I mean, if that's not unique, I don't know what is. But yeah, they are awesome to chat to. Yeah. It's just incredible just seeing their love for reading and then also how it brings them together as siblings as well. And not just conflict like it does. No, I'm joking. It does bring us closer together, but we love to bring the sibling rivalries out as well. It was a great chat. We absolutely loved it.
Yeah, go check it out.
And we hope you do as well. And it's on the channel and they were recommending us many books. Some that we'll be picking up in April.
Hell yeah. Will, tell us what you've been reading.
I read a book called The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna. I'm not sure if you've heard of it. It is one of the most famous historical fiction books of recent years. And oh my gosh, this just took my heart out, stamped on it, threw it away, brought it back.
Smeared it across my life.
And then it brought it back so I could cry a bit. And then it took it out again and broke it. This is...
And you want this book on your shelf?
I think you should all read it to cause emotional damage to yourselves. But it's weird. Some emotional damage you feel is needed. Yeah. This was incredible.
Were you in the mood to cry before you read it?
I didn't really think I'm in the mood to cry. Yeah. But I did, so maybe I was. But The Nightingale, it is very hard with any books that combat World War II to do so sensitively. That doesn't feel like it's just going through the motions of just showing how horrific it was in a way that doesn't convey the heart that it should. I feel like it's not dangerous for an author, but they have to be careful with how they approach this topic. And Kristen Hanna, in my opinion, did so wonderfully. We follow two sisters in France during the occupation. And they kind of go in separate directions, one leading more of an open resistance and one just trying to survive and do good whilst keeping her family alive as well. And it is utterly incredible. From the first chapter, some of the lines really hit home with me, and I thought this is one of the best chapters I've ever read. The writing was magnetic, and I was drawn in right from the beginning. I was like a fish. It caught me, it hooked me in, and it did not let go.
It chopped you up, it cooked you, put some lemon juice on you. Yeah?
Well, it definitely did, yeah. And The Nightingale was really fantastic. It's earned its praise, and I will definitely be reading more by Kristen Hanna. And Sadie, how could Sadie tell me to read a book that did so much damage to me?
She knows your reading taste.
If you read The Nightingale, we should do a review as a trio.
Good idea. I definitely will be reading it very, very soon. But Kristen Hanna, or Hannah Kristen, as you like to call her.
I know.
Kristen Hanna is heavily on my list to read, because I think The Women
was the best-selling book of 2024. All genres encompassed.
Pretty crazy.
It is.
Yeah. Next one I read was also about war, but this is about the Spanish Civil War, and it is For Whom the Bell Tolls by Ernest Hemingway. Now, at the beginning of the year, I set myself the challenge to read one Hemingway book, which was A Farewell to Arms. William and a lot of other commenters said, "You idiot, why would you read that one instead of For Whom the Bell Tolls?" So
I'm glad for my For Whom the Bell Tolls crowd.
Yeah, for once, I decided to listen to Will, and it worked. For Whom the Bell Tolls is a great read. Now, this is the story of Robert Jordan before he wrote The Wheel of Time, and he is in the Spanish. He's an American volunteer in the Spanish Civil War.
Just to clarify, the main character is called Robert Jordan.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Robert Jordan is fighting against the fascist regime. You have the Soviet Union is also involved in the Spanish Civil War on the side of Robert Jordan, and he is a guerrilla fighter. He is with a group of Spaniards also in the mountains fighting as guerrilla fighters against the fascist regime, and he is tasked to blow up a bridge, which is a very important bridge in the whole wider array of the war.
For manoeuvring troops, goods, strategically.
Yeah. So we then follow Robert Jordan as he is associating with these guerrilla fighters. They are planning, they are talking about their experiences pre-war and their hopes and dreams post-war. And it's a really intimate story with a very small cast. It's a really powerful story. And I would say the ending is one of the best endings I've ever read. I can imagine reading this in the 30s. I think it was 38. Maybe it was published. Maybe I'm wrong. But you can imagine reading this at the time and being completely dumbfounded at how groundbreaking this book would in fact be. And no wonder Hemingway is seen as, one of the greatest American authors to have ever lived. His prose is sparse, but it feels timeless. His characters feel timeless as well, and it feels like this is a book that anyone could pick up at any time, and they would all have that same feeling of the human condition, which is appropriate and on the nose as it is today, as it was when the war was set in the 1910s. So,
it might have been just me, but I had this just belief that action sequences didn't really exist in literature in a heart-pounding way. Of course, you've got the romance of Arthur, but in the way that it feels terrifying. I didn't think that really existed in more of a modern concept, like postmodernism. But here, the end scene, you feel so immersed in that action sequence. I remember it really caught me off guard, because Ernest Hemingway talked about for his philosophical edge, for his way of relating to the human condition in a way that he's not trying to talk in purple language that confuses you.
No.
He's talking to you like a normal human being.
Yeah.
And conveying emotions that we all go through, even if it's experiences we personally haven't. It's something we can relate to. And then he goes from that into this action sequence that really just showed his range as an author that I haven't heard discussed much, even though he is such a renowned author.
Yeah, I mean, he's got a perfect understanding of like beats and how characters, go through like near misses, and it gets the reader exhilarated. I'd say Hemingway is kind of like an arrow that it just shoots straight. It's so direct. He has a target and he hits it, and there's no going in circles. There's no kind of complex routes he takes. He literally thinks, what is the quickest way to get to what I want to say, and he does it.
Yeah, very nice.
Great book. I also finished, because I started it last month, Sally Rooney's Intermezzo. This is now my favourite book by Sally Rooney.
Wow.
It is Particularly apt, maybe, for you and I to read it. Where it was about two brothers who are dealing with grief, and it is just an incredible book. There are some amazing passages. As always with Sally Rooney, it feels like her writing is evolving into just something even more powerful, something that she is feeling even more confident in. And I just love the way that these characters, there's no caricatures, there's nothing that you would have seen done before, but they feel so real. So you kind of feel like it should be quite like, not homely, but it should feel familiar to you.
Right.
But she just does it so well and so uniquely, and there's so much originality here. It is about these two brothers who have a very strained relationship, about them trying to reconnect with each other, and sometimes they're successful, sometimes they're not. It's incredibly real, but there are just some very, very powerful moments here, and I loved Intermezzo.
Yeah, and I feel like with Sally Rooney, read her 3 previous books, and I feel like because there's heavy romance in the previous 3 books, she's just branded as a romance author. And so a bit like how often fantasies looked down upon by the wider literary group, I feel like romance is as well. And it overlooks her incredible writing. And so do you think her writing is elevated in this, like people are saying, or do you think they're noticing more because it's just not a romance?
I would say it's elevated. I mean, in terms of her prose, I've never written down as many quotes as in a Sally Rooney book as I did with this one. But there is romance, but I think at the core of it, it's just about two humans trying to reconnect with each other. Yeah. And they have their romances. But it all filters into who they are as a person. I completely agree with you that she's not recognised as that writer that she should be, because she has romance in her books. But that's not the heart. But you also think that this
is better writing than her previous books as well.
Yeah, I think it's very, very
assured
writing.
Very nice. I do need to read it soon. I read the first few chapters, and then stupid uni reading.
Fool of a tuck.
Anyway, on to your next, Ed.
Cool. I am currently planning my first D&D campaign, so I thought I need to go and read the D&D classic hero Drizzt. This is Homeland, book 1 by R.A. Salvatore, and it's the story of the Drow who live in the Underdark, and Drizzt is the third-born son of this very powerful family in the Underdark, and he is due to be sacrificed, but one of his brothers is slain in a battle just as he's born, and they always sacrifice the baby who is the third-born son of a Drow family. So luckily he is saved. Thank goodness for his sibling being brutally murdered. And it's a story of Drizzt growing up and coming to terms with who his family is and what they are like. And I'd say the best thing about this book is the fantastic world building, that you get a grip of the Underdark and that kind of classic D&D feel fantasy. It is fun at times, it is dark at times, there is humour, there are some really powerful moments as well, and I think R.A. Salvatore's writing was really, really confident, really, really good. I wouldn't say it was groundbreaking for me or I absolutely fell in love with it, but I can see that I'm going to enjoy it the more and more I read. I think this book 1 definitely felt like a book 1. Drizzt wasn't a good character in my opinion. He was kind of an annoying teenager by the end of it, and you think, really? I get it. He was just obsessed with this panther, and all this other stuff going on, and he's just like, yeah, but what about the panther?
Wouldn't you?
Yeah, I would. Yeah, I get it.
I'm like it with our dog
But
Potter.
he was also annoying sometimes. Will is like that with Potter. But I think where he's left off at the end of this book is going to lead him into a really interesting direction. I'm really keen to read more classic fantasy from the 80s and the 90s, and also prior, basically pre-90s.
Basically fantasy of any period.
Yeah, exactly. So this was number 1 on my list, and I think Elric of Melniboné or Melnibone or something will be the next series I tackle. But I really enjoyed Homeland, and the Drizzt series is something I will continue.
Very nice, and I'll talk about my second and last book that I read in March was History of the Franks by Gregory of Tours, written about 1500 years ago. A long time. And I think, as I've talked about many times, the Icelandic sagas or Beowulf, older texts have this kind of myth that they're really hard to comprehend and understand. And this is yet another example of that myth being wiped away. It was very easy to understand. It is dry because it is a history of the Franks. Whether it's a history, we'll get
No
to.
rain here.
Obviously, no one can be completely objective, and I think Gregory of Tours is very concerned with the ecclesiastical side of things. He comments on non-ecclesiastical, so non-church history,
Thank you.
but in a way that reflects his desires and his prejudices as well. But it's really interesting, and I read this in bits and drabs whilst doing my module on the fall of the Western Roman Empire, more focused on the rise of the barbarian kingdoms, the Franks being one of them. And so I found it really interesting reading it in bits and pieces, adding context, and it was very, very helpful in that way. Of course, it is quite dry, and it is just a history, so it wasn't going to be something that was just really moved me. But there were some really interesting aspects. Like, I've done more research into Queen Fredegund and Queen Brunhild. I'm not sure why they are not discussed. Two queens of the Frankish kingdom that had this conflict with each other for decades upon decades and often took a leading role in their society.
Really?
Why are they not discussed?
So what period are they?
With the Franks in the 6th century.
Wow.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Brunhild and
Fredegund. And Fredegund is believed to have been a slave who then rose up and had to and became a queen, but had to cement her position through her own actions. So she cultivates this network which enforces her position, and she does some brutal things to install order, but she is a very impressive character, and she is kind of painted with a black mark because Gregory of Tours doesn't like her, basically.
Why is there not a book focused on them?
Yeah, the history may have been very different. Yeah, it's really interesting.
Waiting to be written, Will.
Yeah, maybe.
Ditch the uni.
Let's just write this book.
Ditch the uni. Did you give it a star rating?
Probably like 3.5 stars, because...
So Gregory of Tours...
3.5 stars.
Written
You know, I
all
feel
that
like
time
there just
ago.
needs to be a bit more plot, okay? That's a bit...
Okay, talking of no plot, Butter by Asako Yuzuki was, I think, the Waterstones Book of the Year, I believe. And I would give it Book of the Year purely for the cover, but then I started to read it and I thought, oh no, I don't like this at all. It is, I mean, it did make me hungry. There are some amazing
judge
passages.
a book by its cover, Ed.
I did, and I really regret it. But I would have bought it anyway because it has a great cover and it's yellow. So if I have ever book out one day, I want the cover to be yellow. It's a great cover.
So say you get a book deal,
Yeah.
the publishers say no yellow cover. Will you say
Self-pub.
terminate the deal?
Yeah,
Yeah.
self-pubbing.
There we go.
So Butter by Asako Yuzuki is the story of, there is a woman who has been convicted or is being convicted of murdering several young businessmen, and she has done it through food. She's been poisoning them and start giving them mushrooms, probably. Mushrooms are horrible. And other things like
Don't
that.
look so
And there is a
traumatised.
journalist who is just desperate for the next scoop. So she digs into the murderer a little bit more. She finds that she used to have a blog many years ago about the food that she would make. And she was doing some research, and these blogs kind of coincided with when she was killing these young businessmen. And she then goes to meet the murderer, and they start to form this kind of perverse kind of relationship where the murderer is talking to her about food, saying, go and eat this, go and cook this. If you don't, I will not speak with you. And then she was going away and cooking this kind of random stuff. But the food, the descriptions of food were incredible. It was not good for me to be on a diet. Watching my calories. The calorie deficit
Was it
really
healthy
hit me.
food they're talking about?
Yeah, some of it, but I mean, I
Just made you hungry.
it made me really hungry, especially when you read it at night. You're just going to bed, and then you're desperate for some food.
Well, your willpower's at its weakest.
Yes, but I would say it. After the novelty wore off, there's a lot of talk about butter here, and after that wore off, I just didn't really connect with it. I didn't connect with the characters. It didn't feel like very confident writing. Obviously, this is a translation, so maybe that's why it felt like there's just a lot of misses with this book, unfortunately, and I just don't like the way the plot continued through the characters, and the situations they ended up in just kind of felt a bit meaningless to me, which is a shame.
That is a shame, Ed. But anyway, are you more positive on the next book you're talking about?
I kinda. I read All Systems Red by Murderbot. No, not by Murderbot. Murderbot started to write, but it's by Martha Wells. Obviously, we've all seen that picture of Alexander Skarsgård looking very dashing in his white robotic armour, and I thought, I've got to read it because that series comes out in May. So we're
easily swayed.
I did. We are very impressionable. I read All Systems Red. And I thought, yeah, it's okay. It's cool. I mean, it's nice and short. It's a story of this robot who has gained, somehow, free will. And it's about him trying to hide his free will. I think Martha Wells' writing didn't vibe with at all. It felt very info-dumpy, but in an incredibly boring way, I think. And the character of Murderbot had some really interesting traits. Mm-hmm. But the way that he associated with everyone and the focus of his internal monologue just kind of got on my nerves. And I guess that's kind of worrying considering it's such a short book to get on my nerves. Yeah. I would definitely be watching them, but I don't think I'll carry on reading them.
Maybe book 2 won't have info dumps.
Maybe, yeah, I know. But even so, I wasn't keen on the world. And I'm not really a big sci-fi, cyberpunky person, am I?
No.
I would like to be. But I just wasn't keen on how those characters fit into the world, to be honest.
Well, you know what? There's hundreds of books out there waiting to be picked up.
So that many.
You will love.
Yeah,
so.
But I'll enjoy watching it, I'm sure.
Nice.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about your next one?
Sure, okay. And then I also was playing the game Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, and I had some medieval reads. So I read Christian Cameron's Tom Swan, Book 3, The Last Spartans, and also his book, The Keys of St. Peter. Now, these are novellas. There are 5 or 6 novellas all put together for a single book, and they're episodes following Tom Swan set in the 15th century as this young man goes around associating with many powerful people, such as the Pope in Italy. He is associating with people like Hunyadi in Belgrade and other key characters from the 15th century. And I really, really enjoy these stories. I think they've kind of got to the point where the character isn't growing too much in terms of depth, but they're always fun, they're always light-hearted, the action's done very well, and if you do like Kingdom Come Deliverance, I think these would be a good shout because they are very much focused a lot on like the dancing, the clothes, the culture of Italy specifically in the 15th century, which is always fascinating to me, and I love it. They are kind of like Indiana Jones films. They're and I think they would translate very well to a TV show. But yeah, they're lots of fun.
Very nice. Is that your last one, Ed?
I do have another one, but I seem to have misplaced it. I'll be back in a second. And lastly for me is Dan Jones' Henry V. Now this is the non-fiction, the piece de resistance, I think, of Dan Jones's non-fiction writing. It is the story of Henry V, who is considered to be England's greatest king.
That was the sound of books falling. That was the sound of sacrilege.
I'm sorry. So Henry V is obviously a very, very renowned king, specifically for the Battle of Agincourt against the French in the 100
Well, I was going to say,
War.
basically the 2 parameters of a king during this period was basically unite your country, fight the French, wasn't it? If you do them both successfully, then you've done a good job.
But he literally took an arrow to the eye, well, almost the eye. At 16, he had a very fascinating, incredible life. It wasn't a long-lived life, but it was full to the brim of some monumental moments. And Dan Jones here, he changes his style of writing slightly. He writes with present tense, and I think just making that shift makes Henry V. It really comes alive. Dan Jones, this is his best book by far. The writing is totally incredible. It's so fascinating. It's interesting. He's got a way of words, and I absolutely ate this up. If you're looking for a non-fiction just to dive into, just willy-nilly, Henry V is your guy.
Butter made you hungry. You ate this up. But very nice. And see, I love the idea of doing like a biography in this way. Dan Jones, David Mitchell, these sort of historical, non-fiction writers.
Historians.
Historians. That would have been an easier way to say it. I absolutely love this idea, and I hope more people pick it up.
Yeah, hell yeah.
And I'm talking about one that I've not finished yet, but it's exciting news. It is Children's Eagle Moon by Edward Gwynne. Let's have like a halo around this.
Oh.
Yes! That's awesome!
So, yeah, I'm reading Ed's manuscript. It is finished, it is done.
Done and
I'm
dusted,
reading
lemon
it.
and custard.
Yeah, think like dead on like 33% in. I'm a third through this story.
Wow.
And obviously I can't say anything. It'll probably go through edits.
Thanks.
You know what? Nothing needs to change.
Many edits.
And then you'll be sending it off, won't you? So exciting news to come on the channel, whichever
Hopefully.
direction you take it in. But I'm
Yes.
really enjoying it. You love history, you can see that. You love fantasy, I can see that. You love the mix of like modern and classic. You can really feel that. The family at the centre. But then with some subversions as well. Pretty cool. But now on to some news. Some news that is relevant to us. So you were talking about Jay Kristoff. We love Jay Kristoff. Mm-hmm. And he signed a new book deal that was announced in March.
7-figure book deal
For four
books.
A trilogy.
Which is a Game of Thrones meets Suicide Squad.
Pretty cool. And a standalone.
Which is going to be great.
But yeah, so it's 4-book deal, which is awesome. The more books from Jay Kristoff, the better. He also said that the edits are done.
Yeah.
For...
Can we just respect this guy, because he has all the power in the world. The Empire of the Vampire trilogy has been monumentally successful. He could easily have thought, I'm going to churn out 5-6 of these. They're big chonkers, but
yeah.
He could easily do that, and he would make so much money. But he says, you shouldn't have series bigger than a trilogy. There are a few exceptions, but trilogies are the GOAT.
And he's filled this story. He doesn't need to extend it. It feels right as a trilogy.
Exactly, which you've got to respect him for that. And a standalone's going to be very, very exciting as well. But I mean, he's incredible, clearly, at trilogies. And I'm excited to see more books from him, because he is rapidly becoming my favourite author. He could be taking my number one fantasy author spot.
Is he
this
challenging
year.
J. Abercrombie?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that is big,
I
Ed. And something else you're so excited about is you have loved seeing the snippets for the Odyssey, haven't you?
Oh.
The Christopher Nolan adaptation of the Odyssey. There's been a few snippets, and we all know Ed knows a lot about history, and he loves the historical detail.
I love the clothes.
And isn't it amazing to see that Christopher Nolan is really hitting the mark for authenticity?
It's really nice that there's this, probably the most powerful director in Hollywood at the moment. He's got anything at his disposal. He doesn't like CGI. He likes to do everything practically, on the nose, to perfection. Apart from the planes in Dunkirk, but we'll talk about that another time. But he's chosen Odyssey. What a task.
Yeah.
He's going to do a great job. Amazing.
He's had to make real monsters because he won't use CGI.
Exactly. I know, exactly.
Have you seen the jokes of Matt Damon when he looks up and actually sees a Cyclops?
Yeah. He's actually a pig. It's going to be a great film, I'm sure. Unfortunately, though, he doesn't give a crap about anything they would have worn. There's all got this grey brown filter over the clothes. It's one of the most colourful periods of history. Everything was bronze. Why are they wearing black leather armour? Why are they wearing jogging bottoms underneath their skirts? It's just silly. No, don't.
All I can say is I'm really glad it's not got to you. Ed's coping with it remarkably well.
I'm appalled, because it looks even worse than 300. At least 300 looks vaguely, kind of vaguely the similar shapes. At least the shields actually covered them. But it's frustrating, obviously, when we know what the culture would have looked like, what they would have worn, some of the traditions that they had. Just read the Iliad. There's plenty of descriptions of the amazing, beautiful armour they would have worn. And
is that not how you envisaged it?
What you're really
Tom
enjoying
Holland.
this, aren't you? It's just a shame that obviously these historical myths are then going to be portrayed by a director who has no excuse to get things terribly right. Even the ship looks like a drakkar that's been shrunk in the tumble dryer.
Ed cannot wait to watch this film. When we watched in the cinema, we had to do it together because I'm looking forward to Ed being like this the whole time.
Shame, because I've never been the biggest Nolan fan, but I did really love Oppenheimer when I watched it. And since then, I went on a Nolan binge and I was starting to appreciate his works more.
Yeah.
But now...
And The Odyssey is a huge opportunity because mythology and fantasy are so closely tied together. Yeah. Making fantasy more mainstream, the more eyes on fantasy, the better, in my opinion.
Yeah, exactly. And Tom Holland's walking around with black joggers. Looks like he's on the way to the gym. Yeah, when you've got gym at 7, but you're fighting the Cyclops at 10.
Merge them together.
Terrible stuff.
But yeah, that is the news for us.
And we also have more news, Will.
Oh, do we?
Well, you did mention Joe Abercrombie, but we will be talking to Joe Abercrombie, interviewing him for The Broken Binding, for his run of The Devils in June.
Yes, we
have
will.
more details to follow, but it
won't incoming.
I'll say this. It's not going to be on the channel. It's going to be in the flesh.
Can I just reiterate? Interviewing Joe Abercrombie in the flesh.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel terror. You talked about the terror earlier. I'm going to take that with me because it will just signpost my emotion.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's quite something, isn't it? I mean, what an opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, The Devils is probably the biggest fantasy book release of the year, excluding Empire of the Dawn, maybe. Mm-hmm. But you can see that Golance are really, really pushing this. You can see they've done some incredible things of advertising The Devils and the artwork they've put into it as well. The Broken Binding Special Edition is one of the greatest special editions I've ever seen. Like, they've done such a good job, haven't they?
Mm-hmm. They have.
And it's going to be exciting to chat with him.
It will be, of course, awesome. And then last bit of news, actually.
Yeah.
I saw the Ballad of Songbirds, the new Hunger Games book.
Yeah.
Is the second biggest release of 2025 so far.
How many pages is it?
Very funny. 1.5 million copies sold in the first week.
To be fair.
And I've heard it is the best of the series.
Yeah.
And also transcends, like, the series as a whole. Like, how good it is. Most people are saying this is one of the best books.
Is it about Haymitch?
About Haymitch.
Yeah. It's Woody Harrelson.
I've seen on Goodreads, it's had about 200,000 ratings and its average is 4.71. Whereas a Ballad of...
Songbirds and Snakes or something.
Yeah, maybe... Oh, no, what's the new one called?
The Reaping.
I'll have it all come up, because I've forgotten it all the
Ballad
names.
of the Reaping.
But the previous one...
Yeah.
Obviously, it's got like 1 million...
Is that the film?
Ratings, but it's got like an average of like 3.9. So obviously you got the all heavy fans read it, but they didn't say it's like the best book ever. Whereas this new one, people are going crazy.
I can't think of a book that has such a high average rating with a high number of reviews. The only book that I think I've seen have such a high rating is Will of the Many.
Will of the Many, yeah.
Which is like, what, 4.61?
6.1.
So still,
so
it's
pretty
cleared
close.
that and probably got double the reviews. On
it's got 200,000 instead of 100,000.
I can't go through Instagram without seeing it, so that's pretty cool.
It's crazy. Yeah. But yeah, that is all the news for you today. Thank you very much for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed Ed talk about all his reads of March.
Rambling,
and me talk about May too. Let us know your favourite book of March. Oh, Ed, what was your book of the month?
Oh, Nevernight. 100% Nevernight.
Nice.
It's so good. I don't know how you'll beat it.
Very nice. And mine
Yours?
was, out of the two, The Nightingale.
Thank you.
So there we go. That's our books of the month. Let us know yours down in the comments below. Looking forward to talking about our April TBR.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for watching. As always, truth and courage, the brothers Gwynne.
Truth and courage, the brothers Gwynne.